Hey everyone, welcome back to today's video. Welcome back to the channel. And in today's video, we are discussing about how you can actually get yourself below 10% body fat. So I've actually achieved this myself this past year for my first bodybuilding shows. So here's a picture of me one day out before my show, right before I got my tan. This is how I was looking like. Let me put it out there. It is not easy. It's definitely a task that requires a lot of attention, a huge commitment, and also consistency for sure. Unless you're genetically gifted with the ability to just lose fat pretty easily. Even for those who are, it takes a lot and it requires a lot of attention to details for yourself to get below 10% body fat. Okay, so here are a couple of things I'm gonna list off that's gonna require for you to get yourself below 10% body fat. So number one, you're gonna have to be in a calorie deficit, right? So you're gonna have to be losing fat already, slowly cutting out your calories, slowly doing more cardio, and create that calorie deficit so your body is in a state where it can actually burn fat, but without burning muscle, right? We don't want to just see ourselves losing weight on the scale, but we want to actually see a visual difference and how we're looking. Okay, so how we do that is pretty much being in the calorie deficit, but at the same time, while you're in a calorie deficit, you're gonna make sure you're resistance training. So besides from being in a calorie deficit, so your body's burning fat, you're gonna have to be resistance training so you can maintain that muscle tissue, right? So a lot of times when people cut down, they cut down and then they look at themselves in the mirror, they're very unsatisfied, and they see themselves and they say, hey, why do I look like this person on social media? Or why does this person seems like he has so much muscle, but when I cut down, I don't see any lines, or like I do a little bit, but my muscles aren't popping out. So there are a couple reasons for that. Of course, there's lighting, there's a pump, there's also that person might be training longer than you, that person might be taking steroids. But for most people, even for myself, when I first started cutting down and try to get below 10% body fat, but failed to do so, I was losing a lot more muscle than fat. My training was terrible. So that's one thing you have to keep in mind when you're cutting down into that lower body fat percentage. You want to try to maintain as much muscle as you can, right? Because if you can maintain as much muscle as you can have more muscle to show when you actually lose that body fat. So can you keep all your muscle? Probably not. You're gonna lose some type of muscle, you're gonna lose some type of strength, but your goal in every single workout, or if not all your workouts, is try to stay as strong as possible. That's one thing I've learned when you're cutting down below 10% body fat, is you better not take it easy on your workouts. Now, of course, there are days where you're gonna feel like shit, you're gonna feel tired because you're in a calorie deficit, you're eating less food, so your energy levels are gonna feel pretty low, but that does not mean you shouldn't be training hard. That's something you have to keep in mind. Number one, make sure you're in a calorie deficit. Number two, making sure you're strength training and you're keeping your strength as much as you can. So number three, making sure you're getting enough sleep. Like, sleep is so important, like when it comes to getting yourself below 10% body fat. And reducing your stress levels for sure is a big one. If you're stressing out, it's going to hinder your ability to lose fat in terms of maximizing its potential to lose fat. So if you're trying to lose fat, especially when you're digging deep down into that single body fat percentage and you really want to break that 10% body fat, you got to make sure you sleep enough. And sleep is super important. And you can't go into your workouts tired, or you can't go into your days tired, because if you do, you might end up binging. You might end up being super tired, exhausted, and you had enough, and you just tell yourself, hey, I'm just gonna eat whatever I want today, and you end up messing up on your diet, and that's gonna affect you because you're getting close to that single body fat percentage. You can't really mess up on your diet. You have to make sure you're on point, on track with everything, and your workouts gonna have to be on point as well. So if you're not getting enough sleep and you're going to these workouts, telling yourself, hey, I'm feeling a little tired today, let me just pull back a little on the weight. I'm feeling tired this other day, let me just pull back a little more. And then if you just keep pulling back on the weights more and more, and you don't really challenge yourself in those workouts as you're going through this process, like I said before, you're gonna lose more muscle than fat, and at the end results, you're not gonna be satisfied with how you look. So number three is sleep, right? Besides from being a calorie deficit, besides from training hard in the gym, number three is sleep. And those are the top 3 things when it comes to losing body fat and getting yourself down below 10%. One thing I do have to mention besides those 3 things is that you're gonna have to be super accurate, or as accurate as you can possibly be when it comes to your nutrition if you want to get below 10% body fat, if you want to get super shredded, like in terms of more than the beach body look. People don't realize that being below 10% is not just showing your abs, right? Being below 10% is this insane look that people see on the magazines. It's this insane look that people see when people actually compete for these bodybuilding shows. So you're gonna have to be super accurate with your food, and that means weighing out every single thing you eat. As I was getting down to my single body fat percentage, you have to keep in mind that you're probably not gonna be able to eat out as much as you would like, and it's very tough to eat out because you gotta make sure everything is accounted for in terms of not just the calories but the macronutrients, because you have to hit specific numbers in order for your body to function at its best. So a lot of times when you're eating out, you're not getting the most accurate numbers in terms of your carbohydrates, your fats, your proteins, and also the calories. That's even if it says it on the label, anytime you're eating out, it's very difficult for you to be 100% accurate. Now our goal is to be 100% accurate, especially when you're getting down to those single body fat percentage and you're getting down below 10%. You want to be as accurate as possible. Like if you really want to get below 10% body fat, you're gonna have to be accurate. So if you want to get below 10% body fat, it's gonna require a lot of work, more work than you ever done in the past in terms of just losing weight and losing body fat. It's gonna be to the next level, right? Like jumping from 20% body fat to 15% is a lot different than jumping from 10% to 5%. It might take you a longer time to only lose 1% body fat when you're actually that deep into the dieting phase. So there's a lot of things that you have to make sure that goes right. You got to make sure everything's on point when it comes down to getting yourself down to 10%. So a lot of people, especially you, if you're trying to get down below 10%, ask yourself if you're ready to do that. Ask yourself if mentally and physically, and also with your current situation with life, like do you have kids? Is there a lot of stress going on in your life? Like, is it really ideal for you to actually get down below 10% body fat? And for most people, the answer is gonna be no. And I know that's not what you want to hear, and I know a lot of people, they don't want to hear that. They don't want to hear that they can't be below 10% body fat, or it's just for their current situation they might not be able to, because it does require a lot of attention. It also requires you to make a lot of sacrifices, requires you to be a little selfish at times. That's one thing I've realized, that if you want to be super shredded, super lean, stage ready, to the point where I've been explaining how these people look, yeah, you're gonna have to make some sacrifices, and that means you might have to skip out on some social events, right? Birthday parties, you might not have that slice of cake, right? You might not be able to have that drink that you want every single weekend, right? So it comes down to meticulously tracking for pretty much a period of time, so you can be as accurate as possible in order to get yourself below 10% body fat. So am I saying you shouldn't try? I'm not saying that. I'm not saying you shouldn't try to get yourself below 10% body fat, because it's possible. Anyone can do it. Anyone out there can get themselves below 10% body fat, but is it ideal? Probably not. Probably not. Because it's, even if you get below 10% body fat, you have to keep in mind that it's something that's very hard to sustain. For many people, it's only for a short, brief period of time, and not a lot of people stay below 10% body fat for a long period of time. A lot of time is for specific events, maybe for a photo shoot, maybe for a competition, and after that, they try to increase their body fat percentage so they feel healthier, and then they also feel better. That's one thing you have to keep in mind too. So if you're trying to get below 10% body fat, you're not going to feel the best. You're going to feel hungry. That's one thing anyone feels whenever they're trying to lose body fat. So just keep that in mind. You're not going to feel the best. So if you want to get below 10% body fat, is it doable? For sure it's doable. A lot of people can do it. But is it ideal for many people? Probably not. So can everyone get below 10% body fat? Yes, and you can too. Is it ideal for everyone? Probably not. So ask yourself if you're willing to commit to this. Ask yourself if you're willing to be meticulous and be tracking a lot of this stuff, your training, your nutrition, your sleep, everything to a T, or at least close to it, to 100%, to make sure you're losing body fat and getting yourself below 10%. So it's possible. It's possible by a lot of people, but I wouldn't say it's ideal for many people. So if you found this video helpful, make sure you hit that thumbs up button down below. Also hit that subscribe button and hit that bell for notification for future content. Also, if you have any other fitness questions that I can help answer, or any other fitness related topic that you want me to discuss here on this channel, make sure you comment down below, and I'll catch you next time in the next video.